In July 2025, 19-year-old bicycle safety educator Kayla Van Landingham was killed while crossing on her bicycle at a legal crosswalk when a motorist failed to stop and struck her and killed her. This resulted in the city of Albuquerque updating its traffic code for the first time since 1974. And it also the state legislature passed new driver's ed requirements to say that motorists must always stop for vulnerable road users at crosswalks. Vulnerable road users are people on bicycles, people who are walking, using wheelchairs or strollers, scooters. If you're a vulnerable road user, you should be protected at a crosswalk. But our streets are not really designed that way. Our streets are kind of built in a way that prioritizes cars over human beings. And over time, this has really hurt us, hurt our communities, and exacerbated inequalities. So we're going to talk about those inequalities, we're going to talk about vehicular death, and we're going to also talk about how expensive it is when we choose to prioritize cars over human beings. A little bit of a word about language. Because driving is so deadly, a lot of times we almost dance around the language of it. We say, oh, someone was in a car accident, or we'll say, oh, it was an accident. But when we do that, as noted by Jessie Singer in her 2023 book, There Are No Accidents, it gives no culpability. There's no, it says it was an act of God, an act of faith, when a crash would make you wonder, who was at fault? Was it the person who manufactured the car? Was it the speed limit? Was it the driving conditions? Was it the person actually driving the cars? And this is particularly important in a place like New Mexico, where in 2024, the Governor Highway Safety Association noted in their pedestrian traffic fatality report that New Mexico has been the deadliest state for pedestrians for 5 years in a row. And Albuquerque, New Mexico is particularly dangerous. And so when we're thinking about this deadliness, we're not also thinking about these kinds of horrible crashes that are tragedies, but we're also thinking about the long-term effects of prioritizing cars. War on Cars podcast hosts Sarah Goodyear and Doug Gordon noted in their 2025 book, Life After Cars, that we have a habit of putting freeways and what we call stroads, which are roads that aren't really sure if they're a street where you can kind of turn off a lot and people can walk, or if it's a road where you can go really fast. We put a lot of these kinds of driving infrastructure in residential areas. That brings in not only unsafe biking and walking conditions that can lead to greater crashes, but it can also lead to pollution and noise pollution and stress. And those are the kinds of things that aren't going to kill you today or tomorrow, but over time, the accumulated health risks can really impact us. Another way is that cars can hurt people is that not everyone can afford to drive. In 2022, the onboard study of the ABQ ride system conducted by the ETC Institute found out that 76% of people who ride ABQ ride live in households that make less than $25,000 a year. You see that in a lot of cities that prioritize cars over people, but you don't see those kinds of economic patterns in cities where public transit is robust and the rich use public transit. And so when we can create unsafe conditions, as bus riders are inherently vulnerable road users because your bus stop is almost never where you're going or in front of your house, it actually can exacerbate these kinds of inequalities that are created by our road conditions, not the least of which is disability. So Anna Zavarts is probably the world's leading expert on driving and disability, and she wrote in 2024, When Driving Isn't an Option, and she talks about all the host of reasons people can't drive. It's not just people with vision impairments like herself, but also people with loss of consciousness disorders like myself, or people who have other health issues that can kind of get make driving make them not a good candidate for driving, let's just say. And when we make it so people are giving up their autonomy and independence to give up their driver's license, they're less likely to actually give up their driver's licenses. This is particularly important when we talk about age. When people are aging, they're more likely to develop disabilities or have worsened eyesight at night. And asking someone who's older to give up their driver's license is also like asking them to give up their independence, and not a lot of people are willing to do that. And on the other side of the coin, a lot of teenagers are not able to drive yet, but maybe they want to hang out with their friends, and so they are also more likely to be vulnerable road users as well. Another thing that I think is really important to talk about is how expensive car storage is. So Henry Graybar notes this in his 2023 book, Paved Paradise, How Parking Explains the World, that the way we mandate how many parking spots must be built in a specific location is actually directly linked to the housing costs to build affordable housing and regular, market rate housing as well. His work is kind of based on the Donald Shoup's high cost of free parking. This is kind of like the manifesto for people who are Shoupistas, they call them, or we call us, who are kind of concerned with the way that parking policy impacts our urban environments and impacts a city's bottom line. And so when you have surface parking, that's not a big money maker. That's not bringing in a lot of taxable income for a city. And so as Donald Shoup notes in this 2018 book, there is, a significant, I guess when we prioritize these kinds of parking situations, there's a significant loss that happens to a city, that it's not collecting as much tax as if it were a home or if it were an actual community asset. And we actually in our own city have seen this with our integrated development ordinance. There are parking minimums that was just passed in February and goes into effect this month in April. Parking minimums that, depending on the type of development it is and the specific location, you may be required to meet. And that often, I've heard from developers directly that can actually impact how much affordable housing they can afford to build. So once you start to see these issues, they pop up everywhere for you. But I think it's really important we all remember, not everybody can drive. Driving can be deadly for a lot of people, and it's hurting our city's bottom line because we can't bring Kayla Van Landingham back. I wish we could, but we can't. But we can try to prevent other people from dying the way that she did and try to build our environments in ways that prioritize people over cars. Thank you.